I am 95 years old. I have outlived my parents, my siblings, and most of the people who ever called me by my first name without a Mr. in front of it. From this vantage point, I can see something that makes my blood run cold, something you are currently blind to. You are living in the shadow of a ghost. You think you have time. You think your parents are a permanent fixture, like a mountain or a piece of furniture you can return to whenever the busy season of your life finally lets up. You're wrong. You're not just wrong. You're a victim of the most terrifying calculation in human history. By the time you turned 18, you had already spent 90% of the total time you will ever have with your mother and father. 90%. You aren't at the beginning of your relationship with them. You are scavenging for crumbs in the final 10%, and you re-spending those remaining scraps like a billionaire who hasn't realized his bank account was drained while he was sleeping. Look at your phone right now. When was the last time you called them just to hear the sound of their breathing? Not to ask for a recipe, not to coordinate a holiday, just to listen. When was the last time you sat across from them and really saw the new wrinkles around their eyes? You're busy, aren't you? You have meetings, you have goals, you have a schedule that you treat like a god. But what is that schedule worth when you retrading the last 3% of a human life for a spreadsheet? You can't answer me, can you? That silence is the sound of the clock ticking toward zero. It was May 14, 1954. I was in Chicago, sitting in a small, cramped office that smelled of stale coffee and cigarette ash. It was unseasonably hot, the kind of heat that makes your shirt stick to your back the moment you move. I was with Miller, my boss at the time, a man who measured human worth by the height of a stack of invoices. He was leaning over my desk, pointing at a line of numbers that didn't add up. The phone on my desk rang. It was my mother. I knew it was her because she always called on Tuesday afternoons. I looked at the phone. I looked at Miller. I thought I was being responsible. I thought I was building a future. I thought I had decades of Tuesdays left. I let it ring. I'll call her back when I'm finished with this, I told myself. I told myself that the work was urgent, that the now mattered more than the someday. But the devastating reality is that there were only 6 Tuesdays left. I didn't know it then, but I was already a ghost in her life. I had already used up my 90%. I was down to the final fragments, the tiny slivers of time that remain after you leave the house and start your real life. And I traded one of those precious, non-renewable slivers for a conversation about a $40 discrepancy in a shipping ledger. I fell for the waiting room trap. I thought my life with her was on hold until I achieved some invisible level of success. I thought I was waiting for the right time to be a son again, but there is no waiting room. There is only the hallway leading to the exit, and I was standing in it, staring at a ledger, while the door was quietly closing behind me. That Tuesday in 1954 wasn't an isolated incident. It was the beginning of a compounding rot. By 1956, those missed Tuesday calls had turned into missed months. I had moved further away, chasing a title and a salary that I can't even remember the name of now. By 1958, the 90 rule had turned into something even more sinister, the illusion of permanence. I did the math once, sitting in the quiet of this room, long after the voices had stopped. It's a calculation that will haunt you if you have the courage to finish it. Most people see their parents about once a year after they move out, maybe for a week at Christmas. If your parents are 60 and they live to be 80, that is 20 years. 20 years sounds like a lifetime. It sounds like an ocean of time. But it's not 20 years. It's 20 days. If you only see them for 1 week a year, you don't have 20 years left with them. You have 140 days. That's it. You can fit the rest of your life with the people who gave you yours into a single 4-month window. I lost my 140 days. I traded them for status. I traded Them for the sunk cost fallacy of a career I didn't even like. I had invested so much time into becoming someone in the city that I couldn't afford to waste a weekend driving back to the porch where I grew up. I was staying in a bad situation, a lonely, high-stress life simply because I had already spent 10 years building it. I told myself I'd visit after the big merger was finalized. I'd visit after the new house was painted. I'd visit after the promotion. After. And then there was no after. I remember 1962. It was a Tuesday again. The phone rang, but this time it wasn't my mother. It was a neighbor. He told me they found her in the garden. She was holding a trowel. She had been waiting for the spring to plant the tulips she'd been talking about for 3 years, the tulips I had promised to help her with someday. I did the actuarial math on my flight back for the funeral. If I had just visited twice a year instead of once, I would have had 40 more days. If I had taken that call in 1954, that would have been 30 more minutes of her voice. Instead, I have 2,190 days of silence for every year since she died. I have lived 63 years without her. That is 22,995 days of wanting to tell her something and realizing the recipient is no longer at the address. I traded 40 days of her presence for a lifetime of her absence. The math of regret is the only math that never rounds up. It only subtracts. I watched Ted, a man I worked with for 30 years, do the same thing. He spent his entire life working overtime so he could buy a retirement home on the coast where his parents could live with him. He spent $200,000 on that house. His father died 2 weeks after the closing. Ed spent 30 years building a monument to a man who just wanted a Saturday afternoon in the backyard. We are all addicts of the optimism bias. We believe we are the exception to the rule. We believe that our busy schedule is a temporary hurdle, while the clock is actually an avalanche. You aren't finding your way, you are losing your people, and the compounding interest of that loss is a debt you will never be able to pay back. Stop the video right now, put your phone face down on the table. Close your eyes for 10 seconds and try to remember the smell of your mother's kitchen or the way your father's voice sounds when he is tired. Can you feel that tightness in your chest? That's not just emotion, that's the 90% ghost. That is the physical realization that you are living in the final, decaying orbit of a relationship that defined your existence. Look at your hands, they look like theirs, don't they? The same knuckles, the same skin. You are a walking, breathing continuation of them, yet you treat them like a subscription service you can cancel and restart when you have more bandwidth. I need you to feel the weight of your own hypocrisy. You claim to love them, yet you give your best energy to a boss who will replace you in a week. And you give your parents the exhausted, irritable leftovers of your Sunday evenings. There are 2 versions of you. There is the one sitting there right now, convinced that you have plenty of time, and then there is the version of you in 50 years, my version. I am screaming at you through the veil of time. I am the future you, begging you to trade your comfort for a moment of connection that won't exist in my world. If you died tonight, what would be the last thing you said to them? Was it "I'm too busy to talk"? Or was it a hurried "love you" at the end of a distracted text? That is the life you are currently living. It is a life of mathematical cowards. I am 95. I am tired of watching people throw away the only currency that matters. Here is what you are going to do, not someday, not after your next meeting. Now, 1. Call them in the next 60 minutes. Do not text. Call. When they answer, do not talk about your day. Do not talk about your problems. Ask them one question. What is your favorite memory of us when I was small? Then be silent. Listen to the way their voice changes. That sound is worth more than every dollar you will ever earn. 2. Open your calendar and delete one productive thing this weekend. Drive to see them, even if it's 4 hours each way. even if you only stay for 2, you will realize that the urgent task you deleted was just a ghost, but the person sitting on that porch is real. 3. Write your own 90 audit. Sit down with a piece of paper. Estimate how many times you see your parents per year. Multiply that by 20. Write that number down in big black ink. Stick it on your fridge. That is the number of times you have left to look them in the eye. Watch how that number changes the way you look at your phone. 4. Ask for an apology you've been holding back. Pride is a luxury for people who think they are immortal. You aren't. If there is a rift, mend it tonight. It will be uncomfortable. You will feel small, but feeling small is better than feeling the cold, hollow weight of too late. 5. Record their voice. Next time you are with them, record them telling a story, any story. Think you'll remember the cadence of their laugh? But you won't. Time erodes memory like water erodes stone. Save the sound of the ghost before it becomes one. The clock in this room is louder than it was when I started talking. Every tick is a second of that final 10% being burned for fuel. I did the math. I lost. I am sitting in a house full of paid bills and quiet rooms, and I would trade every cent of my inheritance to have that Tuesday in 1954 back, to just let the phone ring and answer it. In 50 years, you'll be where I am. What will you tell the person watching then? That the Buick was more important? That the meeting couldn't wait? The silence is coming. Can you hear it? Go.